Welcome everybody to the long-awaited Axton guide. So, on both the Maya guide and the Krieg guides I put out, people have been asking for the other characters, and one of the ones I see most often is actually Axton, surprisingly. And I plan on making one for Zero as well. I don't know if I'll make one for Gage or Sal, just because I'm less experienced in them. But we are here today for Axton, so that's what matters. Before we get started, please, if you end up enjoying this or learning something, leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more stuff like this. And also, thank you guys so much for all of your support. I genuinely appreciate it. Alright, so first of all, what's the point in even picking Axton? Well, a lot of people view Axton as the worst character, and I would disagree. He has extremely good DPS, extremely good mobbing. If you're going, like, glitchless, he has really good rating. Though, honestly, some of his rating was broken around OP10, so he can no longer insta-kill Veracitus or Hyperius like he used to be able to. He's still good against them, but he's not going to have the 2-second speed kills, necessarily, aside from reflection kills. He's just a very good character, and I think a lot of people will be surprised that he's an extremely fun character. I think he has some of the most fun gunplay in the game, because he gets so much swap speed, damage, reload speed, move speed, all of that. He's just a good character. He's good to play solo. If you don't plan on, like, going to OP10, he's very, very good. Even at OP10, he's good. It's just like raid bossing and stuff he has a problem with. But let's go ahead and jump straight into the skills. For the first one, obviously, you need Saber Turret. So how his turret works is you throw it down, it'll go for the duration of that bar down on the bottom of the screen, and it'll do damage. Now, come UVHM and the OP levels, its damage is relatively low, admittedly. It loses a lot of its DPS, but early game, it's actually extremely powerful. You could beat the game with exclusively the turret if you wanted. But one thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't suffer any damage reduction from enemies. So if you go and kill an Iron God, for instance, who gets to like level 112 or whatever, you as a level 80 get a massive damage reduction to that. You get like 90% reduced damage to it. Your turret will not. Your turret will still do full damage. So actually, the fastest ways to kill an Iron God legitimately are using Axton's turret, to my knowledge. Don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on the turret. But yeah, the biggest part of the turret, though, especially UVHM and OP levels, is distraction. You can make it so the enemies will pretty much never aim at you and will only aim at your turrets, and I think people underestimate that. So let's go ahead and go through the trees, and I'm going to try to show you how I would level them up as I was going, but I will be describing every single skill as it is and what every single skill does. Alright, so starting down the left skill tree, which I will say most of the time that I'm playing through this game, in normal mode, I either go down the middle skill tree, which will give you a bit more damage, or the left skill tree, which gives you more utility while still giving you damage. So it's up to you, but I would recommend one of these two through normal mode. The right skill tree is mostly, it's called survival because it's mostly his survival tree, but you totally could do it in normal mode. I've done that on multiple playthroughs. So your two options to start are either Sentry, which increases the number of shots on your turret and increases the duration, which is the big part. I think by default your turret shoots like 5 shots per volley, so in a way it doubles its DPS, but not quite. But it keeps it out longer, which the longer it's out, the better, because you get bonuses from it being out. Early game, because his turret is actually powerful, I do recommend getting this. I think it's totally fair to go into this first. But I normally end up going into Ready, which will give a whopping 40% reload speed at max level. So if I show you in comparison, actually, I have a mod that can let me just respec. Oh, I'll also mention real quick, I'm not using any mods that would affect gameplay. There's no UCP, like no community patch, no Borderlands 2 fix, nothing like that. Everything you see here is vanilla, aside from the fact that I can unspec my skill points. It just makes it easier to do these videos. Anyway, with no points into Ready, you can see my Slaga is quite a long little time to reload. If I max it out, though, it takes it down significantly. So, highly recommend it. One of his best skills, honestly. He's great at reload. Then we move on to Laser Sight and Willing. Laser Sight, it'll just make it so your turret will miss less often, but it's honestly not very good. Even in normal mode, I would pretty much never get this. I know some people get it because it'll put a laser sight, like a physical laser sight, onto it, and it helps you track which enemy he's going to be shooting at, or it, I guess, whatever enemy it's going to be shooting at, and then you're able to essentially go for the same target. I don't recommend laser sight. I would pretty much never get it. I feel like it's a waste of skill points, but if you want to drop one in there, feel free to be my guide. Maybe you think the turret looks cooler with the laser sight, and that's fine. The other option, though, is one of the best shield skills in the game, in my opinion. It's just straight up 75% increased recharge rate and 60% recharge delay, which as Axton, you're one of the best shield characters, and a lot of the shields that you use only need you to have a little bit of it up. So you want to be getting your shield up as quickly as possible and as often as possible. So moving on, Onslaught is one of the best kill skills in the game, in my opinion. Killing an enemy increases your gun damage and move speed for a short time. It's very straightforward. Pretty much you just get a kill, you get 30% more damage to get more kills, and 60% move speed. And I can show you how to, well, a little bit later, I'll show you how to proc that on demand, and also the combination with Metal Storm. And then there is Scorched Earth, which essentially what this will do is when you throw it on your turret, he gets big missile pods on him that he shoots rockets at the enemies. If you spec into this, it can actually get kills in UVHM by itself. And in normal Vault Hunter mode and true Vault Hunter mode, it'll actually just shred through enemies. But the biggest use, I would say, for like UVHM and OP10 is a lot of times it can end up killing the smaller enemies, but even the ones that it doesn't kill, it essentially negates health regen entirely of the enemies. Though I know some people don't like it because it's visually polluting. Then moving on to Able, a lot of people get this wrong. This is not a lifesteal skill. At max stacks, what it does is when you damage an enemy by any means, it can be a melee, a grenade, firing, like just shooting at them. As long as you do damage to an enemy, you regen 2% of your max health per second over 3 seconds, so you get 6% of your health back over the course of 3 seconds. There are class mods that will double this to 4%, and then you're getting 12% of your max health over 3 seconds. This is a very good skill. Honestly, Axton, between just Able, Preparation, and his shielding and grit and stuff, you actually don't need a Moxie weapon at all. A lot of people don't use Moxie weapons at all on Axton because you just simply don't need them. But yeah, so pretty much anytime your health is missing at all, just shoot one bullet at an enemy and you'll start healing. And you'll see that down on the hotbar. And then Grenadier, it's just straight up 5 more grenades in your carrying capacity, so now I can carry up to 15. Through the use of class mods, you can get that even higher. I think his max is 21 or 23. Then there is Crisis Management, which at max level gives you 35% increased gun damage and 30% melee damage while your shields are depleted. I don't recommend this skill. I skip it almost every time. This and Laser Sight, I pretty much never ever get. Again, you could, and I could see a person making a Rough Rider build, but I don't think it would be very good with him, honestly. It's only when your shields are fully depleted, except this skill gives you recharge rate and recharge delay, so you'll start recharging more often. Quick Charge will recharge your shields on kill, giving you them more often, and Pressure gives you more recharge delay, meaning that it'll always be up more often, so you'll never get the benefit of Crisis Management. I don't know. This skill did not make sense. I don't think they thought this one through. And then there's Double Up, which is one of my favorite skills for Axton, because all it does is... Alright, so now that it is back up, I can throw it down, and you can see it's got a second gun down below it, and that actually shoots out slag, so... for terms of actually doing damage, like, it doesn't give the turret that much more, though it makes Scorched Earth do a lot more. But it means that you can go through the game without having to slag anything because your turret will be slagging. And then paired up later with another skill, we can have it so pretty much everything is slagged at all times on the battlefield. So that's the entirety of his left skill tree. It's very simple. Again, if I was just leveling up as I was going, I would go through Ready, then Willing, then I'd probably max out Onslaught, get Scorched Earth, max out Able. You could do Able or Onslaught first, it's up to you. And then I normally put 4 points into Grenadier, and then drop one in Double Up. If you feel like you don't want to use grenades for the playthrough, you could instead go into Sentry, and then Double Up. Alright, moving on to his middle skill tree, another fairly simple skill tree, but it's a bit more complicated. The left one really has like no weird interactions or anything you need to know. The middle one does. And this one's probably going to be the longest one to talk about. So Impact is the first skill. It's just 20% increased gun damage and 15% melee. The melee doesn't make sense. I don't know why they give him 2 melee skills. He's not a melee character. Melee is never going to be good. 20% increased gun damage is not very much, honestly. But if you're using any sort of comm that boosts impact, you can get it up to 40 or 45%. And so it's like pretty good. But honestly, Expertise is a lot better of a skill. So this will give you move speed while you're aimed on sight. It'll give you bonus to aim speed, and it'll give you weapon swap speed. So without it, if I'm swapping between weapons, you know, it's pretty fast. We're in UVHM, so it gets buffed, so it's okay. But then I max out Expertise, and you can see everything is just almost instant swapping, which means you can slag very easily, or one of the big things about this skill is if you're the type of person that wants to use the Flacker and a Nukem, or you want to orc swap to get crazy effects from the orc, he is the best character for it, in my opinion. Krieg can be better, but only when he's on kill skills. And also, it gives you bonus move speed while you're aimed down sight. So as you walk, you just walk faster, ADS. If I unspec, you can see I get very slowed down. Put points into it, and I move 35% faster. I will cover real quick, there's other videos out there, and I even made a short about it, which I will leave in the description. But if you're playing on PC and you're in a friend's game, it doesn't work if you're the host, but if you're in a friend's game, you can aim down sights and just press the drop reload button, and you've got that 35% bonus move speed at all times as a stack. And so you can sit here just doing this, and you'll literally go up to like 10,000% speed. If you're on console, though, you have to fill up your inventory to the brim, then find a weapon that's on the ground somewhere, like this, for instance, aim down sight, and then pick it up. Aim down sight, pick it up. Aim down sight, pick it up. Though I've heard some people try to claim it's patched, so I don't know if like the console version is patched or something. I don't know. I don't think it's patched, but it could be. Tell me in the comments. Anyway, moving on. Then we've got Overload. A lot of people think of Axton as the assault rifle character. This is his one and only assault rifle skill. And it's just straight up 50% increase to magazine size, which is good. It's just a good skill. So like here, my Kerblaster by default has a 42, and instead it gets a 63. And that would apply to anything else I use. This has 59 by default, now it's up to 88. It's a good skill, but I wouldn't typically get it unless you're really using assault rifles. Moving on to another of his best skills in the game. Metal Storm is essentially just a different way to DPS along with Onslaught. So it's another kill skill. So when you get a kill, you get 60% increase to your fire rate and 75% recoil reduction. The recoil reduction is like, who cares? It's actually kind of nice though, I won't lie. It's significantly less noticeable than the fire rate, but you'll be getting 60% fire rate. And keep in mind, if you're also spec down here, essentially on kill, you get 60% quicker shots, right? 50% increase or 60% increased fire rate, on top of 30% gun damage. I don't know what the DPS calculation is for that, but it's a lot more damage when you mix the two. And then moving on to Longbow Turret, which I feel is one of his actually most important skills for his turret. I think a lot of people underrate it. What it essentially lets you do is now I can throw my turret anywhere I want. I can throw it all the way across the map. I don't think there's a cap to how far it can go, but if I want, I can stand in this corner, and now that my turret's back up, I can chuck it, and it lands on the other side of the map. So this lets you really pinpoint where you want to place your turret, and then again, mixed with another skill later, it'll become even better. But I think one thing people underestimate about the skill is the fact that it over doubles the turret health. It increases the turret's health by 110%, which is actually a very significant amount. I think a lot of people really underestimate that. They think the turret dies too quickly in UVHM, which I disagree with. When you add this on, I highly disagree with it, because all of a sudden, it literally lasts for double the time. And as long as you're throwing your turrets in smart places, it works pretty well. Then on to Battlefront. Again, a melee damage skill. I guess he has 3. But another melee damage skill, which doesn't make sense. But you get 30% increase to your grenade damage and gun damage while your turret's out. So anytime that you're in combat and you have your turret out and about, which you probably will most of the time, you just straight up get 30% increase to all of your damage sources. And on guns that are explosive, most guns that are explosive, anything that does grenade damage, like the Unkept Herald, for instance, this technically does grenade damage, you're getting the 60%, or not 60%, sorry, you're getting the 30% gun damage. And then the splash damage is getting a 30% increase as well. So on a gun like an Unkept Herald or whatever, it's actually significantly more damage increase than it looks. Then moving on to Steady, this is one of his most important skills for explosive builds. It gives him recoil reduction, which again, who cares? But it gives him 25% grenade damage and 20% rocket launcher damage. So this is where I'm going to actually explain it. There are like 15 different types of splash damage in this game. I don't know how they all work. It's kind of confusing, honestly. But all you really need to know is that grenade damage applies to both grenades that you throw, an actual thrown grenade, and it applies to any weapon that deals grenade splash damage. A rocket launcher, for instance, deals rocket splash damage. Weapons like, believe it or not, the Kerblaster and the Carnage, both for some reason deal rocket splash damage. Or maybe they deal, I think they actually deal weapon splash, so I don't think they get any bonus from rocket damage. Or something like the Wanderlust, for some reason, deals rocket splash. Any gun that doesn't, for the most part, is going to be doing grenade damage. So, for instance, like the Unkept Herald, the extra splash it has, which when you shoot the ground, if there's a little explosion, you can assume that there's some sort of splash damage on it. Those weapons will receive the benefits of grenade damage on the actual splash aspect. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but now get ready because I'm about to list off every single weapon in the game that I could find that has grenade damage, okay? We have the Avenger, the Baby Maker, the Blockhead, the Devastator, the Evil Smasher, the Florentine, the Hail, the Hector's Paradise, the Hellfire, the Hornet, the Infection Cleaner, the Kerblaster, but only on the child grenades from the Kerblaster. The actual rocket itself doesn't get any. The Landscaper should, but I don't actually know about the Landscaper. The Nirvana, the Ogre, the Omen, the Peak Opener, again, that's just the grenades, the Pocket Rocket, the Ruby, the Sword Explosion, for some reason the Tesla Orbs from the Storm, the Teapot, the Thunderball Fist, the Teeth of Terramorphous, the Tinderbox, the Twister, the Unicorn Explosion, the Unkept Herald, the Volcano, and the Yellow Jacket, along with every non-unique Torg weapon in the game. Every non-unique Torg will do splash damage on the Gyro Jets, and all thrown TDR weapons also will get bonus grenade damage. Then there's also, I think all Plasma Casters, except for Bandit Plasma Casters, get grenade splash damage. And I believe that Bandit Splasher Blasters, so Bandit E-Tech Shotguns, I believe they also get grenade damage bonuses. I'm sure that I missed a few, but all of those weapons I listed will receive bonus damage from grenade damage bonuses, which is what Axton really has. People think of him as the explosive character. He's not really the explosive character. He is the grenade character. Krieg is more of the explosive character because he directly buffs actual explosive damage. But yeah, hopefully that all isn't too confusing. Just know that a lot of weapons do grenade splash, and this will buff that, which is what makes them so good. But a lot of them, like the Unkept Herald, will also get buffed by explosive damage relics. I know it's kind of confusing, but you'll learn it in time. Finally, we can move on. So next there is Duty Calls. This one is increased gun damage and fire rate for non-elemental guns. This is not a very good skill unless you're using like the Becca, but it's like the fire rate doesn't really make sense because most non-elemental weapons you'll be using at the OP levels and in UVHM are Jacobs, and you don't need the fire rate on Jacobs weapons. And the gun damage itself is pretty low. This only applies to literally like actual non-elemental weapons, so it doesn't apply to explosive weapons. And yeah, it's just all around not a very good skill, honestly. And then there is Do or Die, which is a must-have skill, in my opinion. This lets you throw grenades while in fight for your life. And it's also just another 10% increase to your gun, your grenade and rocket launcher damage. So between that and this, your grenades are at 35% increased damage and rockets are at 30% increased damage. Then there's the skill Ranger, which is not good. It gives a ton of stats, but it only gives 5% in each stat. If you were using a class mod that could boost these all up to 10%, it would be kind of worth it. But as is, I really don't ever spec into Ranger. I don't remember the last time I did spec into it. Again, if you had a class mod that buffed Ranger, you could probably make it decent, but otherwise, I don't recommend it. And then we're on to Nuke, which essentially is just when you throw out your turret, you literally create a nuclear explosion. In normal and true Vault Hunter mode, it actually does a significant amount of damage, especially if you slag the enemies. And you can make a build all around Nuke, where you essentially throw out your turrets, pick them up, and then throw them out again. However, in UVHM and the OP levels, the damage from Nuke is extremely low. Not extremely low, but it's pretty darn low, to the point where it's not really worth using. It does set the enemies on fire, if that means anything to you. But the biggest thing is it knocks back the enemies. So you can do a bunch of funny stuff where you just stun lock the enemies. But that's the main purpose of it. So it's not a bad skill to have. It's good crowd control. Anyway, so if you have, 3 psychos charging you, you just throw that at the ground and they're all launched back. One will get launched that way, that way, that way. And yeah, it's just mostly crowd control, but beyond that, it's not anything too crazy. And moving on to his survival tree. First skill is increase the max health by 30%. A lot of people don't like health stacking in this game. I actually really do. I like to use a build where I max out healthy with a Blood of the Ancients and an Evolution, and it's actually extremely powerful. However, I feel like the other skill, Preparation, is actually the better skill here, which will give you 15% increase to your shield capacity, and 2% of your health will regen per second while your shields are full. So once my shield fills up, you can see my health is regenning down in the bottom left. You can even get this with plus 10 on it. So you'll be regenning 4% of your max health while your shields are up, and you'll have 30% shield capacity, which is actually really good considering how often your shield will be up through Willing, Pressure, and Quick Charge. It's a good skill. Both of them are good skills, honestly. Preparation is the better of the two in my opinion. Then there is Last Ditch Effort, which increases your gun damage and move speed in Fight for Your Life. I'm always so-and-so kind of iffy on Fight for Your Life skills because it's like, well, if you have other skills, you'll probably get down less often. But at the same time, I feel like people don't admit enough that most people get down at least at some point. If you play really, really safe and you're playing like way in the back all the time, then yeah, you won't get down. But if you're playing more like a normal human being, you'll get down eventually, and this skill just makes it so you have way quicker move speed and more damage. So you can see while I'm down, I'm able to go pretty darn fast. If you actually get one of the class mods that increases Last Ditch Effort, you can start zooming around the map, and I think I have one, so I'll put that on right now. So here's with +5 in Last Ditch Effort. You can see you get really, really quick move speed, so you can get over to your buddy if they're going to revive you, or you can find some new enemies to hit, and then you can throw a grenade at them while you're down. Moving on, then you're on to Pressure, which increases your reload speed and shield recharge delay based off how much health you have. So if you're down at like 1 HP, you'll get up to 60% increased recharge delay, or sorry, 60% reduced recharge delay, which does stack with the bonuses from Willing, and also up to 70% reload speed at low health, which is crazy. Then you get onto one of my favorite skills in the game, which is Quick Charge. This is a kill skill where on kill, you just regen 5% of your max shield per second, which is really, really good. I think it's the highest recharge per second skill in the game. The thing is, a lot of shields in this game, like I mentioned earlier, only require, 1% charge to even work. So with that, after you get a kill, things like the Big Boom Blaster, or the Evolution, or the Antagonist, the effects from it will be working 24/7 because you've always got, that 1%, or like if you're using a sham, for instance. As long as you just have literally one capacity on your shield, you can absorb that bullet, So by having this, you always have your shield up a little bit. Then there is Phalanx Shield, which I feel is sort of underrated, but also not. It pretty much gets one-shot by everything in UVHM and OP levels, but it essentially just creates a shield around. However, it will tank one hit from literally anything, so if you're fighting Hyperius, for instance, it can take the damage from his Nova and you won't take any damage. It also will get rid of Wormhole Thrusters, like their Suck move. It'll prevent you from being sucked in, so during the Terramorphous fight, if you get to the phase where he's a Wormhole Thresher, you can throw that down and he can't suck you in. So kind of niche uses, but it only takes 1 point and it does absorb a few bullets. So I typically always get it. Then there is Forbearance, which is sort of, I'm kind of back and forth on this skill. It gives you 5% increase to max health, which is like, that increase is so low that I wish they would have either increase that to be an actual substantial amount, or B, just taken that away and given more status effect duration loss. Yeah, so 5% max health, but also status effects will last for 40% less time on you, which a lot of people will complain that in the OP levels, as soon as you get a fire dot on you, you're just going to die eventually, right? Because it does so much. Well, with this, you're able to make that not happen, though it's not necessarily my go-to skill. So it's a good skill, though. If you're going through an area that has a lot of dots, then yeah, it's pretty good. But then there is Maglock, which is one of my favorite skills. This allows your turret to stick to any surface you throw it at, which means you can throw your turret up out of combat where something like a Psycho or a Spider Ant or whatever won't be able to hit it. Psychos obviously will be able to throw their axes, but your turret will still survive a lot longer. But things like Spider Ants or Varkids, most beast type enemies, most like creature type enemies won't be able to hit your turret. You can throw it, and if there's like a Spider Ant there, what are they going to do? They can shoot their web, which doesn't do much damage, and will have to get through that Phalanx Shield. They can try to jump at it, but they'll probably miss. So your turret is pretty much in zero danger when you have Maglock. If you also have Longbow Turret, then you can throw it like way up there or whatever. And that just gets even more powerful. Then we move on to Resourceful, which is just 25% increase to cooldown rate. I don't like this skill. I know a lot of people will die on the hill that this skill is great. But the thing is, by putting 5 skill points into this, you save 10 seconds on your turret being down. But alternatively, it's like you can just wait out of combat for that time and instead have more damaging skills. And instead have more damaging skills that will actually have an impact. So I don't like Resourceful. I can see why someone would, but I pretty much never actually spec into it. Then there is Grit, which is one of my favorite skills on Accident. Essentially, once you are about to take damage that will reduce your health to 0, you have a 20% chance to instead instantly regain half of your health, which should put you just above health gate. A lot of times what will happen with Grit is you'll hit that 20% chance, it'll bring you up to half HP, then something will be essentially trying to one-shot you, and then it'll activate again and again and again and again, and sometimes you can get chains of like it's not uncommon to get chains of 8 or 9 times in a row where Grit saves your life. I think a lot of people underestimate that. I know there are quite a few people that don't like Grit, but I think it is extremely good, and you can use class mods that'll buff it up to 45% at max, which gives you pretty good odds of survival most of the time, and that will work on anything in the game that can deal damage to you. So all in all, it's actually a good skill. Then we get to one of my other favorite abilities in the game, which is Gemini, and this one allows you to throw out 2 turrets at once, which is just very good. It makes it so there's a ton of aggro relief, because just from the one, there's aggro relief, and then when you add in a second one, it doubles that. And keep in mind, with other skills, if you're combining it with Nuke, you get 2 nukes every cooldown. You get 2 versions of Double Up. You get 2 versions of Scorched Earth. And yeah, they just become extremely useful. Though I've heard there's some misconceptions that Battlefront gets double the bonuses from having 2 turrets out, and that is not true. At least to my knowledge, I've tested it and I didn't find anything like that. So I don't know if I did something wrong or what, but I'm pretty sure that that does not apply. If I was leveling up this tree as I was going through normal Vault Hunter mode or whatever, I'd go through Preparation, max that out. Then I'd max out Pressure, probably put 1 point into Phalanx Shield, and then get Quick Charge. Then I'd grab Maglock, finish up Quick Charge, and then here I'd have a bit of a choice. Honestly, they're all good choices here. In normal Vault Hunter mode, I think Forbearance is probably not needed. I typically go for Healthy, but you could go for Resourceful or Last Ditch Effort. And then I like to max out Grit and go for Gemini. And I just realized I don't think I showed how to level up through the middle skill tree very well. So if I was going middle skill tree, I'd go through Expertise, probably Metal Storm, then Longbow Turret, grab Steady, grab Do or Die, and then put points here either into Impact or a Battlefront. And then here it's kind of your choice. I would then go into Impact and then go for Nuke. So now let's go ahead and make an actual build that I would typically like to go for. So I like to go for, I think about which tree I have and what I'd like to go for. Typically, I like to have 2 Saber turrets that can both slag. So I go for either the left or right skill tree first, typically the left though. So I'll go 4 into Ready and then 1 into Sentry, because a lot of times I use a Legendary Soldier class mod, which will buff that. And then I will max out Willing, max out Able or Onslaught, depending on if I need damage at the moment or if I need healing. Then I go Scorched Earth, grab some in Grenadier, grab Double Up, then I move over. I max out Preparation, max out Pressure, Phalanx Shield, max out Quick Charge, get Maglock. Like I said earlier, I typically get Healthy at this point, but you could get Resourceful or Last Ditch Effort. I max out Grit, get Gemini, and then I work down the middle skill tree. Again, I normally put 4 into Expertise and 1 into Impact, because a lot of times I use the Legendary Soldier, which will buff these up. Then I get Metal Storm, which again, Metal Storm combined with Onslaught increases your DPS by a substantial amount. Then I like to get Longbow Turret, and I like to get at least 4 or 5 points into Steady for increased grenade damage on, again, my actual grenades, but also all the weapons I listed off earlier. Then grab Do or Die so I can use those in combat, and then I'm stuck with 6 extra points left over. At this point, it's really up to you where you want to put this. I feel like Battlefront is probably the most worth it. I put 4 into Battlefront, and then I have 1 point. If I want an extra grenade, I'll go for that. If I want the extra reload, I go for that. And if I want more swap speed, I go for this. And I think today we'll go ahead and do that. So this is my typical final build, normally around this, give or take a few points here or there. Again, there are plenty of skill trees you can do as Axton. Pretty much all of his skills are viable. He only has a few that are not very good, it's mostly Crisis Management, Duty Calls, and Ranger. Those are like the only 3 kind of questionable skills. But yeah, I normally go for something about like this, and we can move over to the gear, I think. Oh, one thing I do want to mention, when you have Gemini spec that allows you to throw 2 saber turrets, if you throw one, and then I throw the other and pick this one up before it lands, you'll notice that I actually get my kill skills. So if I throw that, and then pick that one up, in the bottom you can see I have my kill skills, and I'm able to move much faster due to Onslaught, which is good for mobility. It's also good for like proccing kill skills, I guess, before the fight, except it's sort of useless. But if you're using a Shock Trooper class mod, wherever mine is, that has an increase to Onslaught, we're actually going to be able to get insane move speed off of this. If you're playing co-op and you happen to be playing co-op with a Krieg who gets a Reaper class mod, you're able to double your kill skill duration up to 14 seconds. So you'll have 14 seconds of this move speed right here, which is really, 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 really good. It's faster than like Fleet Maya even. Now we will move on to the items. And I think first we're going to go through all the equipment type items before the weapons, because there's just so many weapons to use. Let's go ahead and start with class mod, I guess. So he has a ton of class mods that are like genuinely beyond viable, but like really good. And one of the biggest shows of that, one of the biggest versions of that, is his Legendary Soldier class mod, which just the stats alone are insane on it, okay? You get 50% cooldown rate, which is way better than having Resourceful, okay? If you already have this, you don't need Resourceful, because you're getting Resourceful will give you 25% at max level. This one class mod will just straight up make it a 20-second cooldown on your turrets. And keep in mind, if you recall your turret early, that's even shorter. It also gives, and this isn't a perfect version, but it also gives gun damage and fire rate, which are both parts of the DPS calculation. So unlike most class mods where you get an increase to fire rate or an increase to gun damage, you're getting both in this case, which means you're getting a very, very significant increase to your DPS. And this isn't even taking into account the skills we have yet. So the cooldown, gun rate, and fire rate by itself is worth using this class mod. One thing that I will know about any class mod of Axton's that increases fire rate, so this or his gunner class mods, like the auto gunner, they are actually glitched. So it says that they only increase fire rate by 26%. I think a perfect one will say 27% on the Legendary Soldier, and the auto gunner will say 34%, I want to say. But that's actually glitched. So on the Legendary Soldier, even a perfect one with a quote-unquote 27% increased fire rate, it's actually 36% increased fire rate. So the gun damage is accurate though. So with a perfect one, you're getting a 42% increase to your gun damage and a 36% increase to your fire rate, which is insane. Then you mix that on top of Onslaught and Metal Storm, which increase your fire rate by another 60% and another 30% gun damage, and your DPS is more than doubled. Your gun damage alone is doubled, and then your fire rate is doubled on top of that. Also, something else to know is that on the auto gunner comm over here, that team fire rate applies to your turret. And again, I think a perfect auto gunner takes you up to 51% fire rate. It'll say like 34, but I believe it's 51% at max. So your turret does do 50% quicker firing, which can make your turret actually kind of decent. Just something to keep in mind. Kind of niche, but yes. So his Legendary Soldier class mod is goated. It's got the cooldown, the gun rate, or the gun damage and the fire rate, and the skills it buffs are just so good. By having 1 point into Sentry, you get 12 extra seconds of duration, which means 12 more seconds of Battlefront. Then you get an extra 32% increase to reload speed. Or no, because it's +5. You just straight up get an extra 40% increase to reload speed. Impact will give you another 20% gun damage. Your swap speed, aim speed, and move speed, while ADS, become insane. You can see how quick I can just swap to whatever. So maybe I'm shooting him with this, and then swap slag, start shooting again. It makes healthy give you a very substantial chunk of health. I think at max level it's 60% increase to your health bar, which is very, very good. And again, preparation puts you at 30% and 4% of your shield recharge. Or sorry, 4% of your health being recharged. So if we put on something that has, or if I put on the hoplite to take away my health, then go ahead and put back on whatever shield I had, you can see that's not a small amount of health regen, and then if you mix that with being able to shoot any enemy with Able, your healing goes up to like 6% per second, which is very good. So this is his most goated class mod. This is probably his best class mod and the most like all-around class mod, but that's not to say that others don't work. The Ranger is notoriously one of the most disappointing class mods in the game. It is good on paper. Okay, on paper, it's like his best one. And honestly, the team shield recharge rate and the team charge delay are both actually really good. And I think a perfect one, yeah, so a perfect version would give 61% team recharge rate and minus 37% delay, which is very good for your team. And the skills that it boosts seem really good because it boosts Impact, Onslaught, Metal Storm, Ranger, and Quick Charge. However, very, very, very sadly, Onslaught and Quick Charge are both glitched. So you actually don't get an increase to either of those. The only way you get an increase is if you get a kill skill, then put on the Legendary Ranger class mod, and for the next like 6 seconds, you'll have bonuses to both of them. So it is very sad. It's still a good class mod by itself though, because Ranger, the effects it actually gives from the shields and Metal Storm are just powerful enough as is. So moving on to another class mod, we've got the Legendary Engineer, which gives cooldown rate, which is okay. Gives Impact, which is okay. It gives Sentry, which is okay. It gives Able, which is good. Battlefront, which is very good. And Resourceful, which is okay. At max, it does make your turret come up all the time, and you get Battlefront bonus pretty much all the time because of that. But it's not really my go-to class mod. It's not bad, though. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And then there is like a million of his other class mods that are all good or decent. So going through the most important ones, Tactician's good for team recharge rate. It's just pretty good. And then there's the Grenadier class mods, which are probably his second most important class mods in the game. These will give you, I don't know what the perfect ones will give you, but like this one will give 43% increase to grenade damage, which again applies to many, many guns in this game. They typically will boost Impact, Steady, and Grenadier. So the ones that improve Grenadier will make your capacity even higher. So right now I'm at 19 grenade capacity. And then Impact, which is honestly pretty negligible. A lot of times I don't get the class mods that have Impact, but in this case I do. But it will boost Steady, which increases your rocket launcher and grenade damage, again, by a significant amount. The Grenadier class mods are what you're going to want to be using a lot of the times if you're going for an explosive build with something like a Kerblaster, Peak Opener, Unkept Herald, Babymaker, like Tediore builds. Are all very, very good with the Grenadier. Then there are his Tiny Tina comms, which are pretty much just used for the actual stats on them, the fire rate, mag size, crit damage. I think there's one other you can get, but also they max out grit. You can get +6 grit on this, which through using grit, you're able to reflect kill things like Hyperius and the Ancient Dragons, because you're able to essentially get lucky and grit through the damage. He's also got his veteran class mods, which are arguably even better for Tediore chucking builds. Probably the Expert Veteran or the... I think there's another veteran that'll buff Steady up to max, but it'll give you reload speed, which is good for Tediore. It'll give you mag size, which is good for Tediore. And it gives +6 to Steady, which is 55% increase to grenade damage, which applies to Tediore throws. Axton is like the Tediore character. Krieg is actually able to do more damage with Tediore, but Axton is better with it. And then he's got his Shock Trooper class mods, which are good because they buff both Onslaught and Metal Storm, which sadly the Legendary Ranger can't do. So with this, you're able to buff both of them by a significant amount. And like I said before, you're able to get a move speed build going on and just become super, super fast, which is nice. There are his Pointman class mods, which are kind of whatever. They give max health and health regen. They're okay, but they're not really the greatest. His Auto Gunner class mods, which again make his turret better and will give Metal Storm and Steady, and I think one other skill, but I don't remember what, honestly. And then there's his Rifleman comms, which if you get the right Rifleman comm, I like the Frontline Rifleman. This will outdamage the Legendary Soldier when using assault rifles, but this will increase it by, 50 to 60% increase magazine size, which when you combine with Overload will double the magazine size of your guns. It'll also increase your damage by around 50% and buff Battlefront, Onslaught, or Impact. Impact is the least impactful of them, no pun intended. As aware, Battlefront will give 66% increase to your gun damage whenever your turret's out, and Onslaught will be increasing your gun damage and boost speed after kill. So if you're going to be using assault rifles, this is honestly probably your best class mod you can get. For all-in-all general use, I typically go for a legendary soldier, and if I'm going specifically for a grenade damage build, I'll often use a grenadier, and if I'm going for an actual grenade build, I'll use a master grenadier, which will give high grenade damage and +6 into grenadier, +10 or +5 in steady. For this, we will probably just use a legendary ranger, but I might show off quite a few different things. Then moving on to the relics, you can use a lot of different things. The most obvious one is an explosive damage relic. You can get up to 42% increase to your explosive damage, which is huge. Even without it, I'm able to do more than enough damage to most enemies. Alternatives are the hard carry for an assault rifle build. If you mix this with Onslaught and with the Rifleman class mod, your assault rifle damage is really, really high, and assault rifles become crazy good, or I guess the mouthwash too if you want, which is good with the toothpick. Then there's the Blood of the Seraphs, which I actually quite enjoy. He does really well with the increase to max health and also the health regen, though I actually prefer Blood of the Ancients if I'm going to be health stacking, because you can get higher amounts on the max health. The Shadow of the Seraphs is quite good for double shot chance, though it's not necessarily the one I would recommend, but I do have it on this character. And then obviously Bone of the Ancients, which are going to be the best possible options for damage, even though these are super, super underleveled ones with really bad stats, they'll still increase your damage by a ton. Probably one of my favorite ones, my favorite one to use that's not an explosive damage one, is my Allegiance one with fire rate and magazine size on Torgue weapons. Whenever I'm doing a Torgue build, this will massively increase your damage with Torgue weapons specifically, which a lot of times I'll have a Kerblaster, an Unkept Herald, and like a Ravager on. And in those cases, the Allegiance Relic is actually a lot better. But I think I'll just use the normal Elemental Relic. Moving on to grenades, he has a ton of options. Obviously, he's the grenade character. So Electric Chair, Stormfront. The Electric Chair and Stormfront are two very obvious ones. The Fastball is a very, very obvious one, because he's able to one-shot most basic mobs with the Fastball. The Meteor Shower and bonus package are both very good. I feel like the bonus package is actually a bit better though. The Quasar or any sort of singularity is good for pulling in enemies to do a lot of crowd damage with, but he can make pretty much any grenade work well, because he does get so many damage bonuses and he can get 20 of them, but obviously the best one is really the Fastball. Also, he's very good with Slag Crossfire for slagging bosses, because he can throw out 20 of them. You could use a Slag Normal Bouncing Betty for normal combat to slag up the enemies, or you could also use a magic missile, which also has the benefit of regenning your grenades. And that's one of his best options and makes it so you literally never need a slagging tool, period. But for grenade, it's really whatever you want, but the Fastball will give you the most damage. Then moving on to one of my favorite aspects of him are the shields. He has such good shield synergies through the use of Preparation, Quick Charge, Pressure, and Willing that he can use pretty much any shield well, with one of my favorites being the Big Boom Blaster. What this one does is there's a % chance to drop a booster every time you take damage, and that booster will actually give you back 1 rocket launcher ammo and 1 grenade. Through the Big Boom Blaster, as long as you're getting sort of lucky, you'll pretty much never run out of grenades, so this is probably the best option for if you're wanting to go through a whole map with just the Fastball or a rocket launcher. Then there's just normal absorb shields. I don't have a sham here, but I do have a sponge, and it fills the same role. But if you had a sham, it is, again, extremely good on Axton, because he can pretty much always have his shield up, so you're almost invincible to anyone throwing bullets at you. Melee enemies, the sham kind of sucks against, but the Evolution is one of my favorite shields on Axton. It's probably my second favorite shield on Axton, because he's able to... Because the whole point of the Evolution is that it gives health regen and a ton of max health at a reduction to capacity, but he's able to make up for that capacity because the 30% from Preparation, and the delay is so low that he takes it down to literally less than a second of delay. It gives the elemental resistance, which is great for the OP levels and means you don't need overbearance. And the actual max health, look how much health that gave me. Here, I'll swap back to the Big Boom Blaster. And down on my health bar, any part that's missing after I put on the Evolution is how much extra health I got. So once I put that on, that's literally 80% increase to my HP. Then, if you really want a health stack, you can then put on some sort of Blood of the Ancients. You can get up to 60% max health, I think. And through doing this, you're able to get your max health to an absolutely ridiculous amount. So right now I've got over 8 million health on Axton, which is super, super good. And keep in mind, now, Preparation healing 4% of my max health, and Able healing 2% of my max health. That's 2 and 4% of 8 million. So as you can imagine, that healing gets really, really, really insane. But if you don't want a health stack and you want just a genuinely good shield, there's also the Antagonist, which is, I feel like Axton is one of the best users of. Again, he's able to take the already high capacity, take it higher, the high recharge rate, take it higher, and it has a 50% chance to deflect bullets, which will reduce the damage you took from said bullet, and it'll reflect back and hit other enemies. And that effect, again, only needs, 1% on the shield. Actually, if I'm not mistaken with the Antagonist, you still have a chance to deflect bullets, but the slag balls need the shield to be up. But either way, regardless of how that works, you pretty much always have your shield up, so you're always getting the bonus effects from the attack. The Hoplite is good for setting your health down to 0, or setting up correct plays with pressure to have insane reload speed for TDR chucking. He's actually half decent with the Flame of the Firehawk. He does pretty decent damage with it. It's not my go-to, but it is actually a possibility, and obviously the B shield. He is insanely good with the B shield because the recharge delay is so low. And another reason he's very good with the B shield is, yes, he has that low recharge delay. Yes, he makes up for the capacity and the rate being poor. But the B shield actually gets bonus damage from the splash. So not only will you get bonus B damage on the actual shots themselves, but the splash damage increases the B's damage. I don't remember the exact calculations, but I want to say that it's like if you have 80% splash damage on your weapon, the B will then do 180% of its damage. I could be wrong about that, but just know that it increases the B damage by a lot, and that's a big part of the reason why he actually does more damage with the hail than he does with the lead storm, because the hail gets bonus grenade damage, which will boost the B shield. Finally, we can get on to all of the weapons. So I equipped 4 of the main weapons that I tend to use. The Unkept Herald is an absolute no-brainer. It doesn't matter if it's a Deepa or just like a hard prefix. Either way, it is great. Then there's the Slagga, which is my favorite slagging tool on Axton. The Blockhead, which is one of my favorite shotguns on Axton. It's locked to fire, which sucks, but it's just so powerful that it doesn't matter. It receives a huge bonus from grenade damage, which means being spec'd into things like Steady will increase the damage of it significantly. The Kerblaster, the normal rockets that you shoot at first, will get the benefit from explosive damage, but not grenade damage. However, the grenades it leaves behind will get the bonus from grenade damage. And the same applies to the Peak Opener, which is way better than the Kerblaster, but not everyone has access to the Peak Opener, and it's kind of broken. So that's why I'm not using it here. I don't have a max level one, but the Toothpick is extremely good. The Seraphim is extremely good. The Leadstorm is very good. The Sawbar is very good. He's great with just like normal Torgue spitters as well. But the Hail is one of my favorite weapons on him. Again, if you're using it with a B shield, the B shield actually gets bonus damage on it due to that grenade damage. It also actually gives 200% increase to crit, and it'll heal you. So this has literally everything Axton would want and everything a B shield would want, because it also has split pellet. The Devastator is decent. The Hornet is one of his best corrosive weapons because it does receive bonus grenade damage, so any grenade damage bonuses will be very powerful on it. The Gunnerang is one of my favorites. It's kind of hard to use, but once you get it down, you're able to one-shot most enemies with it. Axton can genuinely make the Logan's gun good. He's good with pretty much any TDR weapon. The pocket rockets are good. The Tinderbox can actually become usable from the grenade damage bonuses he gets. He's a great user of the Lady Fist with the B, again because of his B shield synergy. He's great with pretty much all rocket launchers because he gets so much rocket damage, and he's great at flacker swapping to a rocket launcher for the same reason, and for the fact that he gets such good swap speed. He is very great with shotguns, especially the Flacker and the Carnage, and Ravagers. With a Ravager, you'll be able to one-shot almost all basic mobs pretty much in this whole game, and he's one of the few characters that can actually use the Flacker without ever having to Flacker swap. Like, he can just genuinely make the Flacker into a good weapon by itself. And the Carnage on Axton competes with the Sword Explosion, in my opinion, regardless of the fact that it does not receive grenade damage. If you use the Carnage with an explosive relic, it's extremely powerful and can, again, one-shot most basic enemies or just kill them in a few hits. And also, I don't have it on this character, but the Sword Explosion is insanely good on Axton. It'll one-shot most mobs as well. He has really good use of most SMGs. He's great with the Florentine because, again, he gets the bonus damage. The Baby Maker for TDR checking is one of his best. He's great with the Sandhawk because he's great with the B. He's great with orc swapping due to his weapon swap speed. Again, plasma casters both get bonus grenade damage, which makes him good. The volcano is very good because it gives him bonus grenade damage as well. And while the Pimpernel doesn't get splash damage, it's one of his best weapons too. I challenge you to use whatever you want. Figure out what weapons work good on Axton and use them, because a lot of people believe that you can only use the same 4 weapons or whatever, but that is just absolutely not true. And hopefully we will prove that to you. So let's go ahead and go through an area, and let's go ahead and start with a grenade build. So I'm actually going to be doing a full grenade build here with a Master Grenadier class mod, a Big Boom Blaster, and an Elemental Relic with an Explosive Fastball. And before we actually do this, I want to show off the difference of how big of a difference having your turrets out makes. Because if I run through this area without throwing out my turrets, most of these rats, some of them won't do that much damage, but I also won't make it very far before I just end up dying. So Grit is popping off. You can hear it is going repeatedly right now, getting very lucky. And I made it to about here without dying. And it was okay. So now let's see how big of a difference it makes when I throw my turrets out to distract the enemies. So maybe I'll throw one there and throw one over there, which this will also be slagging them, but you can see nobody's aiming at me right now. My turret even just got a kill. Nobody's aiming at me. And I'm able to just go straight through the area, which also means that if I won, I'm able to sit here and start actually attacking the enemies, and only a few of them will fight back until my turret goes away, which it just did right there. And then the turret goes away and you just kill everything with your damage. Alright, but now let's actually go through with a full grenade build. So again, Big Boom Blaster, Explosive Relic, Master Grenadier, and a Fastball. And I'll try to show off multiple different builds in this video, but first we'll just do this. And keep in mind, most of your damage is coming from steady. You can throw your grenades while and fight for your life. And Battlefront will increase your grenade damage by another 30%. So keep that in mind. And remember to pick up the Big Boom Blaster little charges that pop off. The boosters, that's what they're called. And you can see with this damage, you literally will one-shot almost everything. Again, throw my turrets out in a spot where nothing will get to it. I'm being shot by someone up there. Pick up my blaster. Or my booster, sorry. The booster also... Oop, I'm stuck on something right now. The booster will also increase your shield, obviously. It still works like a normal booster. So you can pick it up to instantly get a heal back up. Sometimes it's actually smart to start taking damage on purpose, so then you can get more boosters coming out. But right now I'm slagged, so I don't want to do that. There's a booster. Oh, I accidentally killed the guy in the back. And now I'm missing. Let's make sure you pick up a ammo box whenever you can, whenever you get low on grenades. Now we'll go back over here. Throw down some turrets for aggro relief. And if we get lucky, sometimes you can just sit here and tank the really weak enemies, and they'll eventually drop a booster for you, like that guy did right there. Which is more ammo. And we just cleared the entirety of the fridge with only grenades. So I did actually shoot the blockhead like 3 times. I didn't mean to do that though. But you can see the power of his grenade build. And real quick, I'll actually show off too what it's like with the electric chair. So again, most important thing is throw out your turrets. Some places where it'll hopefully protect your turrets from getting hit. But even if you're not using the fastball, you can use something like the electric chair, which you will notice the damage of is so high that it does not matter. And this will be a lot more chaotic of a build, but still a very good build nonetheless. Alternatively, you could use a meteor shower or a bonus package. Oh, hold on, my bad. Also, they're taking all of my things. I'm gonna kill myself here, I think, with my grenades. We'll take it back up. No, I'm good. And then keep in mind, even while using this build, you can use normal guns too. I'm just choosing not to. If I'm not mistaken, the bonus package has a much tighter spread on the explosions, or on the child grenades, as where the meteor shower has a much bigger radius on them. So the bonus package is better for sort of single target, much better for single target killing, as where the meteor shower is better for groups of enemies. Alright, so now I'm thinking we're going to go ahead and go through the Bloodshot Stronghold with more of a gun-based build, and I will keep on the same stuff to start, but we'll swap through quite a few different weapons, and I'll show off what that all is like, and we're going to use the Legendary Soldier. Then I'm also thinking maybe for this build, we're going to instead be using the Evolution for the bonus health. I will... in this case, honestly, I'd like to have a magic missile, but I don't have one on this character. So instead, I will just go with the normal fastball. And I think we'll just keep on the explosive relic. And I will swap to another explosive weapon. In fact, let's go ahead and put on the Baby Maker here. And I'll have that for second winding. And yeah, so to start, we want to make sure our turrets are always out whenever we're in combat. Get the enemies slagged up. And just kill them. Everything should die super quick. Axton has really high DPS. You can see the Kerblaster, I feel like, is a very underrated weapon. A lot of people sleep on it, but it's very, very powerful. And as soon as combat's over, just go ahead and back up your turret. I'm going to turn on the audio here because it's very loud. And keep in mind, even when you're not using the full grenade build, your grenade damage is still very high. So I can still chuck at that guy and almost one-shot him. Maybe I'll wait out a combat. Sometimes here, when my health is low, I'll get my shield to be full HP, so I get preparation healing me. And then just shoot one bullet over at somebody. Maybe, if I can hit him. And if you're able to hit him, Abel will proc. So then let's go ahead, throw my turret. Throw a turret. Oh, don't want to kill myself with that. Just big damage everywhere. I might die here. I'm going to actually go back to cover a little bit. Keep in mind, while you're playing at OP10, you really do want to play around cover quite a bit, like as much as you can. Maybe we'll baby make this guy. The baby maker's weird though, because sometimes if you're able to get it just right and the childs come off quickly, or like if they come out at the right spot, you'll do insane damage, but otherwise it can screw you over a little bit. Here you can see my health regen is going super high due to the mix of Abel and preparation. And let's just go ahead and fastball that guy. Oh, I should have thrown down my turrets there. That was my bad. Got a little ambitious. You pretty much always want to have your turrets up whenever you can. Maybe for that guy, I'll throw these. Hope they land in the right spots, which they seem to be doing. You could be doing more damage with a double penetrating Unkept Herald. I just don't necessarily like it as much. I prefer the accuracy of not having that. But I would be doing more damage with it. In fact, I've got one, so I'll go ahead and swap over to that. And then this is what I'm talking about. If I had Resourceful, I might have my turret up right now. But it's like, I can just wait for, 4 extra seconds or whatever. Then throw out one of those. Throw out one of these. When you have 2 of them, it significantly increases the lifespan of each of them. Get my kill skill going. Run in on this guy. Absolutely no issue right there. Thank you, Deepa. Thank you very, very, very much, Deepa. And how about we use our Blaster a little bit? And while we're at it, let's go ahead and put on my Ravager, actually, so you can see a little bit more diversity. I want to really show off a lot of what this build can do, weapon-wise. Here, I'll get my kill skill off of that. See, if I didn't miss, that would have hit, by the way. Keep that in mind. This guy's very tanky right now. Get my turrets out again. That one bounced backwards somehow. One-shot that guy with the Ravager. One-shot that guy with the Ravager. Two-shot this guy with the Ravager. Again, you can see absolutely no problem ripping through this stuff. So let's go ahead and try some new weapons again. Maybe now I want to use a blockhead with a... I wish Axton wasn't in the way. Maybe I want to use a blockhead with a Pimpernel, and I'll put on a Firebone of the Ancients. I do like to keep the Unkept Herald on pretty much at all times. It's always just like a very good weapon, you know. I did not pick up my turrets back there. If I would have recalled my turrets, I would have had my turrets for this next room. So I'm actually going to wait for a second. So now we move on to here. This is one of my least favorite rooms in the game right here, though. But it'll be okay. Keep in mind, no point to not throw both of your turrets. Always throw them both if you're using the Perk Gemini, the skill. Love using the blockhead. And even the Pimpernel, if you know how to use the Pimpernel, it's very good. I was able to one-shot that guy right there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and pick up my turret right now, so then I'll get it up a bit quicker. I don't need it anymore. You could... I feel like Axton can make use of quite a few weapons. He can make use of weapons that other characters can't necessarily do as well. So he can use like the Bearcat and stuff effectively. It's not going to be ammo effective, but it will kill enemies. Now my turrets are just 1v1ing the world right now. Pull out this blockhead. Nothing should stand more than like 3 shots against this thing. And I will say, guys, notice the fact that if you've ever watched my videos, I die like 24/7. I'm permadeath, pretty much. And while playing as Axton here, I'm actually managing to get through with only a few downs. I say as I'm about to get down again. Oh, no, I'm not even. No Moxie weapons, I'm just able to tank it. There's Grit popping off. Thank you, Grit. I am down here, but luckily I can throw fastballs while I'm down. And I already have my turret back up, which is why I feel like Resourceful is quite a waste, especially if you're using a Legendary Soldier, which most of the time you are going to be. I do feel it is his best class mod. And we can even show off. Let's go ahead and use the Carnage on him, which this is one of my only 2 weapons on this character that I did not legitimately obtain, because farming for that thing is horrible. And let's go ahead and do this actually with a like a Bada Boom too, so you can see what a normal grenade damage build would look like. Pull out the Carnage, and most things will die in just like 3 shots, and then once you get your kill skill up, that's 2 shots. And then maybe I want to Bada Boom this guy with my bonus rocket launcher damage. And you'll notice just how tanky I am, just because I threw the evolution on, and because I get so many good bonuses to the evolution. Thanks to Axton being kind of broken with shields a little bit. Keep in mind with the Carnage, this is the damage it's producing, with the fact that it does almost exclusively... It does exclusively explosive damage. It doesn't do any grenade damage, so he's not actually buffing it through anything aside from his relic, and yet it still does very substantial damage. So you don't necessarily have to play Axton as the grenade character or as the explosive character. Oh, my bad. See if we can snipe that guy. You don't necessarily have to play him like that. However, you will probably be hindering yourself if you don't. He's definitely significantly better with those things than without them. And you notice that even without the Grenadier class mod, the fastball just does so much damage on Axton that you're still able to one-shot most mobs. And then especially once Battlefront comes in, if you go back and like watch over this, you'll also notice that the majority of the time that I'm playing here, I'm not even being shot at because it's all just my turrets taking the aggro. So anyone who claims that his turrets are bad probably just haven't really played him that much. And they're probably just picking up what they've heard from other people, because anyone who's played Axton knows that his turrets will literally just be like the game changer that saves you at all times. And while they themselves don't do much damage, they give you bonus damage on Battlefront, and they give you so much aggro relief. So they are capable of some damage, but not necessarily a ton. I think as soon as we finish clearing this out, we'll go ahead and go to a more robot-themed area and show off that he has no problem with that too, because sometimes I get comments about, like, on Krieg, people will tell me, oh, well, go do it in an area with harder enemies. Go do it in an area with flesh enemies, or armored enemies. It's like, okay, well, I can, but he still works just fine. And that's the same case here too. You'll also notice that I never ran out of grenades during all of that. Alright, so here I am in the Washburn Refinery. I've got some corrosive equipment on, so I have a Hornet, a Hail, a Pimpernel, and then I'm actually running the Big Boom Blaster because I'd like to show off that the Pandemic is actually capable of doing pretty good damage here, and I've got a Bone of the Ancients. If I wanted, I could put on a Grenadier class mod, which would buff both the Hail and Hornet, along with the Pandemic even more, but for the sake of this, I'm not really going to be doing that. I'm just going to use the corrosive weapons I have right here. Got that guy down to one shot right there. And again, you want to be throwing your turrets in a spot where it's sort of out of the way for the enemies to shoot at. Here, I'll even throw some Pandemics around the room, and I can guarantee that through the use of my Pandemics and everything, I probably won't even have to aim at the enemies. And everything should just die, but you know what? We'll go ahead and actually do some shooting as well. And as soon as you get your kill skills, all of a sudden, your guns just turn into destroyers of time and space. And keep in mind, guys, this is all... every single part of this is being done at OP10. Which is, you know, the hardest difficulty in the game. Oh, just died. Speaking of, look at that. Good timing. Get back up off that guy. That's the Pandemic doing the damage there. And the only real reasons I died there were out of myself playing poorly. So don't let that reflect back. If I can get back a little bit where the pellets start splitting. He's dead. The Hornet is also a fan favorite for Axton because of the grenade damage bonuses. Plus, it's just a pretty good weapon on anyone you use it on. So I think we're going to go ahead. I probably should have put my turrets up on the walls there, where the exploders won't be able to get them. But it's too late for that. You can see just a few bursts, and the exploders die. So I really hope that I've been doing this justice, and doing the build justice. Hopefully you Axton mains out there won't get too mad at me. I know Alpha probably will. You can go check his channel out. I'll try to leave a link in the description for him. He makes a lot of like Axton builds. He's still new to the whole thing. He just started his channel recently, but I'm gonna die here. But he has been making a lot of Axton builds and showing off some kind of underutilized weapons on Axton. Yeah, I actually got a little worried there for a second. Throw down both my turrets. Keep in mind, if you do use the Pimpernel, you kind of want to aim for their legs, because the pellets will go up to hit their crit. I'm in no way the best player with the Pimpernel. I feel like I'm pretty horrible with it, but it's still able to rip through enemies. Recall my turrets, I'll get them back a little bit sooner. And again, if you've ever watched my gameplay, you know that I get down significantly more than this, so this is like impressive right now. But that's just the power of Axton. And keep in mind, this is no Moxie weapons. Like, I'm surviving better than I would on, like, Krieg, and he's my main. Granted, I mean, part of that reason is because you do play Axton a little bit different than Krieg. Krieg does a lot of just going in on the enemies. As where with Axton, you do a little bit more sitting back. But you can still definitely go in. I feel like Axton is one of the best cases of a character that's able to use almost everything. Him and Krieg both, in my opinion, fill that slot of being able to use most every weapon effectively. Axton a bit more so like across the board, but Krieg is able to bring weapons to new heights. But honestly, there's a lot of people that enjoy Krieg and Axton, and I think that makes total sense because Krieg's gun-based build feels very similar to Axton's in that you get insane reload speed, swap speed, all of that sort of stuff. He just buffs the actual weapons themselves. Everything just dies in a few shots. I wish I had my Corrosive Hail on this character. I'd show that off too. Also, you'll notice with the Hail, my health shoots straight back up to full every time I shoot someone with it, even just like once or twice. Even though the healing is only 2%, you do so much with it that it really doesn't matter. And I could be doing way more if I was using the B shield on top of this, which we'll actually swap over to. And on Axton, your B shield's able to stay up a lot, and you're not really in that much danger of dying when it's down. Like here, I lost it. It is what it is. Shield's back up. And another good reason that Axton can use the B on top of the splash damage bonuses is that he's able to be in combat without any of the enemies shooting at you because they don't even pay attention to you. So you can see once you add the B shield into the equation, everything dies in just a few shots. Like the game becomes pretty much easy mode. Oh, spawn down there this time. There. Flag him up. I'd really like to actually get use of my B shield here. I got shot again. It's okay. Throw down my turrets for some aggro relief, which will also help me get my shield back up. Except it's not recharging for some reason. And then it just shot up to half. That was weird. And then I will also show off that even though this is Hurley, I'll show it off on a better target too, but you can flacker nuke them better than most anyone else in the game. Because you get insane swap speed and just high damage increases, just high bonuses to damage types. And my game just crashed. That's how powerful Axton is, guys. My game literally just crashed. Now, this is in no way the way to play Axton, but here's what he can do with a Sandhawk and a B-Shield. In fact, I had my B-Shield down there, and it literally did not matter. I just do so much damage. Guy's shield is resistant. But once we get that down, he dies super quick. I highly doubt I even need my B-Shield, period, for this. Here, if I purposely break it, I need this guy to stop spinning. Yeah, even without the B-Shield, the Sandhawk is really, really good on Axton. Then you get the B-Shield up, and it's no problem at all. There's Grit popping off. I'll show off a little bit of the antagonist. And I'm sorry if this video is too long for you guys, but I'm really just trying to show off every single thing having to do with this character. Everything that he can use, everything that's good on him. You can see my shield is pretty much always up, thanks to all the buffs I have. So even once I start taking some shield damage, like there he just hurt my shield, but thanks to quick charge, it's already charging back. And then by the time quick charge is over, my actual delay is over. So Axton is capable of killing the raid bosses just through non-glitch methods, like easier than a lot of the characters can, aside from like Salvador. So if you want, you can go for the classic, just Sandhawk with a B-Shield, but I'm going to try to show off just how good the Flacker Nukem strat is, or Flacker World Burn in this case. So same build as before, it's my kind of one build to rule them all. Got an Evolution, Soldier class mod, and then put on my Explosive Damage Relic, and then a Crossfire. I am using the Grog Nozzle in this case. Normally I don't, but for raid bosses it makes sense. And then I'm just going to throw down both my turrets so that he's constantly getting slagged. Then I want to be throwing Crossfires. So again, he is constantly slagged, hopefully. Once he comes up, which should be right about now. He's managing to not get slagged a single time. And then whenever you're low, just swap to the Deepa, swap back. And it's not going to be the quickest speed kill of your life, but it is a very, very easy kill. And this is possible on the other raid bosses. I feel like Terramorphous is one of the best ones for this, though. I just wish he would get slagged right now. So technically, you can kill him faster if you go ahead and use a Fire Sandhawk and then Lady Fist swap once it's going to his eyeball. You can see once the slag kicks in, it's a lot of damage. If I had a kill skill, it would further increase that damage. But let's try ahead and go ahead and try to get a kill skill here. Might not happen. Get my heal back up. This is Rock Tentacle gone. Actually, I'm going to kill another one. Make sure I'm healed up all the way. Whenever you get low, just go ahead and shoot out a Deepa, or whatever weapon you've got, and then swap to your Grog. Oh, I did not reload. Look at me being a noob. Alright, if we're able to get that, and get him slagged, the massive chunks get taken out of him. You really got to make sure you reload, unlike me. I managed to mess that up every time. And hopefully he doesn't hit Fire Phase right here. Hopefully we're able to kill him before he goes Fire Phase. It looks like we should be able to right now. And there you go. One of the easiest Terramorphous skills you can get right there on Axton. Go ahead and got a Slayer of Terror class mod. And again, alternatively, you could sit over here and put on the B-Shield with a Sandhawk. fire all of your shots at his eye, and then open your inventory and put on your Lady Fist to crit swap. And that will kill him quicker, but that's a lot harder to do. So I figure Flacker swapping is the way to go typically on this. And again, you can absolutely use that build on pretty much any of the raid bosses, and it should work decently well. Some bosses it'll work better on than others. Terramorphous it works really well on because he's so big, but not every boss will get affected by the Flacker as much as he did. But luckily the bosses that can't be affected by that all pretty much go down through just like a bee and a sandhawk. So typically like your typical raiding build on most characters, you know? And then there are bosses like Son of Cromarax or Hatterax, which are really just reliant on having the right weapon. And Axon is very good at killing them. I feel like Axon has one of the better kills of Son of Cromarax in the game. One thing that I feel I failed to mention is that you can also do a very viable rocket launcher build on him without even needing the sham. Alternatively, you could use a sham and obviously a Logan's gun, or even a sponge and a Logan's gun, anything, any sort of absorb shield with a Logan's gun to get your ammo back. Or if you want to play a bit more aggressive, you can use the Big Boom Blaster to be getting it up while you're in combat. So if you want, through this, you can use just actually a full-on rocket launcher build. And he can use a lot of rockets well. I've seen him use the Pyrophobia extremely well. But also just his normal rocket launchers, you might see, like the World Burn, are extremely good on him. There's that peak opener being broken. Oh. Here, I'll go ahead and World Burn this guy. This is that booster I was looking for. Right there, the booster actually just saved my life by picking it up, which was nice. A lot of times the booster will appear right in front of your eyes, so sometimes it's best to just listen for the sound of the booster, and as soon as you hear it, press E. Like that. I just caught it out of midair. Sorry about the bloom, it's like impossible to see here. Yeah, as soon as you hear the sound of the booster shield, that, I don't know how to describe the sound, but that little, like, electronic sound, as soon as you hear that, just start mashing E or square or X or whatever platform you're playing on, mash that button, and you should be able to pick it up before it even touches the ground. Oh, Grit is going crazy right now. Thank you, Grit. Booster. And as you get better at picking up those boosters, you will realize that ammo is not too big of a problem, especially if you're just using a rocket as like a secondary weapon and you're still primarily using something else. You'll have pretty much unlimited rocket ammo. So for instance, if I were to decide that I'm going to be using primarily the peak opener, but just use the rocket whenever there's big chunks of enemies, I can easily do that. Most things should die in just a few shots of the peak opener. This is sort of why I don't use it, honestly. It's kind of just broken. And then here, maybe I want to second wind with a rocket. It's kind of just broken. But in a way, that's really fun. And in another way, it's like, that makes it less fun. But it's a very, very good option. Oh, that's a heavy nomad. That was me killing myself on accident. So, I really hope that this video has showed you, one, how to play Axon more properly, And I'm not like the best player ever in the game. I just know a lot about the game. Hopefully I've shown how to play Axton. Hopefully I've shown you the power of Axton and shown you that he's really not the bad character that everyone seems to think he is. I feel like that... See, I thought that the myth of him being bad had been debunked long ago, but for some reason there's been like a resurgence of Axton hate I've seen recently. Especially, oops, I say as I kill myself. I've seen on my like ranking videos and stuff, a lot of people complaining about Axton, calling him the worst character and whatnot. Or a lot of people calling him unfun, which is totally subjective, but the reason I find Axton so fun is because he's able to do things with his guns that other people can't do. He's able to get such ridiculous reload speed and swap speed and all of that that only really Krieg can compete with, which is my actual favorite character. And then as for actual other raid bossing, I don't plan on showing any of that in this video, but I will go ahead and try to link to some raid boss kills. Again, it's so sad. When they added OP10, they doubled the health of a few of the raid bosses, and prior to that, Axton actually had extremely good ways to kill them, and he used to even hold the records for some of the bosses. But unfortunately, that's just not the case anymore. He has pretty much lost that place because he's no longer able to do the crazy things he was once able to do, which is very unfortunate. But he's still very good at killing raid bosses in a quote-unquote legitimate way, which I feel other characters aren't necessarily able to do. I mean, Salvador can, because it's Salvador, but I feel like the other characters have a bit more trouble than he does. Oh man, Theodora Axton is so fun too. I highly recommend that you guys actually go out and try new weapons for yourself and try things that may or may not work, because the thing is, if you just sit there and blindly follow what other people say, first of all, you're not actually going to become a wiser person. You'll become... it's like becoming book smart, but not actually knowledgeable. But also, you may miss out on a lot of actually really cool weapons that work super well, like for instance the Gunnerang. Sadly, I don't have a non-elemental one on this character, but with the Gunnerang, you're able to actually pull off some pretty insane stuff and do some really high damage. A lot of times whenever I use it, I'm able to one-shot most basic mobs with it. You just have to get around the learning curve of how to throw it, which is the hardest part of the weapon. But also there are guns, you know, like the Pimpernel, for instance, that on paper, you think, oh, it's a sniper, it's probably not that good on Axton, but then you actually try it and realize it's extremely good on Axton. It's actually one of Axton's better choices, which shouldn't surprise most people because it is the Pimpernel, ultimately. Also, I figured I'd just show off real quick how good the Volcano is, because it actually gets bonus grenade damage. And this is what I'm talking about. I said that the Volcano was a good weapon, but I'm sure that a lot of you probably thought, it's probably whatever, it's probably decent. But it's like, no, at OP10, it's just straight up one-shotting all of these enemies. And that's why I feel like it's important to try things for yourself. Don't just take my word for things. Don't just listen to me saying, oh, this weapon's good on Axton. Actually go try out the weapon and see if the weapon is good on Axton. Maybe you think of a different weapon that might be good on Axton and try to make a build around it. Most weapons in this game, even at OP10 and stuff, can be extremely good if you make a build around it. In Axton's case, honestly, his build is sort of a one build fits all. But again, you don't have to do my exact build. I've seen so many people do entirely opposite builds of me. I just love having both the slag turrets. So that's why I pretty much always go down both the left and right skill tree all the way. But there are plenty of people that don't do that, plenty of people that don't use the slag turret and instead rely on their swap speed to slag or slag grenades, such as magic missiles or bouncing betties. I know that there are a ton of people that like to run nuke, or people that only run one turret. And whatever you want to run is a totally viable option. Ultimately, you can play however you want, and I feel like Axton is one of the best characters for that. One of the characters that lets you play how you want, without being too broken like Salvador, where it's sort of unfun, because there's just so much you can do. And so definitely requiring a lot of skill. It's definitely skilled gameplay. but while being able to use a wide variety of different items. So, and I think that about wraps up the build. So hopefully I covered everything. I am very sorry that this was such a long video, and I know it's a little all over the place. I know that I randomly, out of nowhere, did Terramorphous. Apologize for that. But I hope that I did this justice. And again, I really urge you, please go try out your own weapons. Try out things for you, because sometimes there are things that seem like they'd work that don't, like the Seeker. But there are things that you may think aren't that good, or maybe you've heard like the Kerr Blaster, because it's kind of been back and forth throughout time what people feel about the Kerr Blaster. But I've heard plenty of people say that the Kerr Blaster is a bad assault rifle, and that assault rifles are bad in general. But if you actually go and use this, you'll realize that it's actually really good. Anyway, so that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I apologize for it being so long. I hope it was very in-depth. I hope you learned a lot from this. And please consider leaving a like and a subscription, because this did take forever to make. This recording right now is pushing 2 hours and 20 minutes right now, and I still have all the editing to do. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, share it with your friends, or whatever you want to do. Leave comments down below. Tell me all the things that you do different, all the things that you like to do, your favorite builds, anything I may have forgotten, any sort of bugs or exploits I may have forgotten. And yeah, I will try to leave some raid kills in the description. I will leave Alpha's channel in the description. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Stay cool, stay awesome. I love you all. If you made it this far into the video, I don't know, do something cool in the comments. Comment a watermelon or something. I don't know. But thank you all for watching. Seriously, means the world to me. And one last thing. Huge shout out to all of my YouTube members. They really help make all of this possible. And I appreciate their support so very much. So shout out, huge shout out to Sean, Crow's Dog, Lil Gasmask 666, Raji Flaps, Shrubbery, Coda's Garden, and Lobster. You guys are awesome. I love you all. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Peace.